The problem is Xi Jinping and some psychos in top positions of the CCP, Chinese Communist Party. If the Chinese Communist Party reforms and ends hostility towards other countries, then India and China can easily become friends and form an Asian union. Psychos. I think the top leadership of the Chinese Communist Party is extremely realistic. It's very pragmatic, very practical, and they are very logical. They're not psychos. And if you look at the history of China, and if you look at the kind of leaders they've had in the past, I think Mr. Xi Jinping is a reasonably well balanced person. Yeah. Uh, all you have to do, the problem is we don't study history, right? We don't study history. Just go back a few decades and see what kind of leaders they had. See what Mr. Mao Zedong did to his own people. Nearly 100 million deaths in China and wars with everybody. Yeah. I think Mr. Xi Jinping, if you compare him with Mr. Mao Zedong, is an extremely moderate and well-balanced person. The overall objectives of the Chinese Communist Party have never changed. Their overall objective from day one has always been consistent and the same: to expand in all directions, take over everybody's territory, and become the center of the world, Middle Kingdom, the only nation that matters. Everybody else is irrelevant. That's always been the aim, the dream, the hope of the Chinese Communist Party. So Mr. Xi Jinping is doing the same thing that his predecessors were doing, and right now he is in. He has the advantage of a massive economy and a massive military. Because he's a massive military, he's able to pour so much more money into the military. Even if the Chinese are spending the same percentage of the GDP on as India on the military, they are able to have a military budget of maybe $150 billion or maybe $200 billion, somewhere there, right? Because their economy is so much more massive. I don't think these people are psychos. I think if Mr. Xi Jinping falls by the wayside and somebody else comes to power, that person may be even worse, way worse than Mr. Xi Jinping. It is a possibility. Right now, he has kind of lost face. He has been kind of humiliated by the Americans. If he loses his position as the boss, as the supreme leader of the CCP, and somebody else is put in place by the CCP, that person is likely to be much more of a hardliner than Mr. Xi Jinping is. So the CCP is not going to reform. They are not going to end their hostility towards India or other nations. They even covet Russian territory. That claim has never really gone away. If you look at this region of Manchuria, the Ussuri River and all that, they claim this territory. They have dormant claims to this territory, and those claims will be reactivated when the time is right. So the CCP is not going to reform. It is the one thing that gives them legitimacy in the eyes of their public, in the eyes of 1.4 billion Chinese, that the CCP is going to make us great. It's going to make China number one. It's going to transform China into a superpower, and we will be the most prestigious and greatest people in the world. That is the social contract. That is the promise, and that is why the CCP is in power. The moment they lose their credibility, there's going to be civil war in China. That is a process. It's a cycle you see over and over and over again in Chinese history, the dynastic cycles. The CCP is just one dynasty. So we need to be realistic. The CCP is not going to reform. If they start reforming and becoming more moderate, they will lose credibility in the eyes of their own people, and that will lead to their downfall. They cannot afford that to happen. Chinese civil wars are never pretty. They are extraordinarily massive, messy, and bloody. So India needs to be extremely realistic and hard-nosed. There is no possibility of China ending its hostility towards India. There is no possibility of having a friendly Asian Union. There could be cooperation between India and China if India rises rapidly in the next 10 years and becomes a significant economy and a significant military power. The Chinese will have no option but to grudgingly shake hands with India and cooperate on a variety of matters. But the overall objective, long-term objective, will still be the same: to destroy India and become number one. So I have said in the past, there is a possibility in the future of cooperation between India and China. I have not said there will be friendship and warmth. There will be issue-based cooperation, which already exists between India and China. But always remember, the objective of the Chinese Communist Party is to make China the sole superpower in the world. And a strong India, united India, does not figure in their future envisioned world order. All right, so that's the deal.